So we'll just wait for the live stream to start, Mr. Chair, and then I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair, you can proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our virtual meeting of Brampton's Planning and Development Committee. This meeting will be held through remote electronic participation in accordance with Municipal Act 2001. City Council has authorized virtual meetings of its committees with members participating remotely to facilitate the continuation of city business during the current pandemic. We will begin the meeting with the City Clerk calling the roll call for attendance at today's meeting.
So members of committee, I will call your names. Councillor Dillon.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Singh has not joined the meeting at the moment. Councillor Fortini.
I'm here, Peter.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Present.
Chair Medeiros is present. Councillor Bowman.
I'm here, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paleshi. Councillor Paleshi.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Willens.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Visante.
I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. And Councillor Santos.
I'm here, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Singh has not joined the session at this moment. So, Mr. Chair, you do have a quorum present.
Thank you very much, Peter. Next item is approval of the agenda. First of all, I'd like to start off and add an agenda item. Alan Parsons, our director, to introduce Steve Ganesh, our new development service manager. Does any member wish to add a business item to today's meeting? No. Okay. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Paleshi to approve the agenda, that the agenda for the regular Planning and Development Committee meeting of October 5th, 2020 be approved. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. There are no objections, so the motion carries.
So, Mr. Chair, just to point out,
Yes.
that will include 11.4, that added correspondence I just referenced at the start.
Okay.
It's just received. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Meetings of municipal councils are to be open to the public for transparency and accountability, and our meeting will continue to be as well. With a few precautions and limitations, in-person attendance at this meeting is very limited. Members and most staff are participating electronically in the meeting. The public can still access and participate in the meeting in a number of ways. Watching this meeting remotely through the city's live stream and playback of the archived video stream, registering with the city clerk's office as a virtual delegate to participate in a meeting, registering to attend the meeting in person to observe the meeting, or submitting questions about the agenda, business, and decisions made by council today by emailing the city clerk's office at cityclerksoffice@brampton.ca. That's cityclerksoffice@brampton.ca with your question, which may be read into the public meeting record during the 15-minute public question period before the end of the meeting. Also, continue to follow important service and public health updates through the city's website at brampton.ca, which include updated information on the city's response, as well as links to other important sources of information, including Region Appeal Public Health, Province of Ontario, and Government of Canada. A final reminder for members of council before we start to consider today's agenda business, please ensure your video is off and microphone is muted until you are assigned the floor. Then you can turn both on when you speak. This will help ensure only one person is speaking at one time and minimize other background disruptions during the meeting. Declarations of interest on the municipal conflict of interest. Do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matters to be considered on today's agenda? Okay, I see none. The clerk will so note for the meeting minutes. Consent motion. Our next item is a consent motion. So right now I only have one item, 11.2, which is in consent motion. Are there any further? We do have an item number 2, which was the addition regarding correspondence from the regional chair, Nando Unica, Region Appeal 24-2020, which are the comments of proposed amendment 1 in land needs assessment methodology for place to grow growth plan for the greater Golden Horseshoe. Does any member wish to add an item to the consent motion today? Okay, so I have a motion moved by Councillor Fortini.
Mr. Chair,
Sorry.
I was on the.
Okay, my apologies.
I can just jump on if you prefer.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Paleshi. My apologies. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to add 7.1 into consent with the added item for 7.12, I believe, the addition.
Okay, so noted. So are there any more speakers on this item? Nope. Okay, so I do have a motion moved by Councillor Fortini and seconded by, I just need to move by Councillor Fortini to approve the consent motion. The correspondence from Nando Unica Regional Chair, Region Appeal dated 24/2020 regarding comments and proposed amendment and land needs assessment methodology for a place to grow growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of October 5th, 2020 be received, and the addition, I believe, do we need to add the addition, City Clerk, by Councillor Palashi to be included in this motion?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, but I just want to clarify, Councillor Palashi, you said 7.1?
Yes, 7.1.
Okay, there is no correspondence associated with 7.1.
Oh, no, sorry, it wasn't a correspondence. It was, there was a note, page 3 of the report was a revision. That's what I was referring to.
Yes, so
I
that
just
will be
want to
included with
identify
the
that there
consent.
was a revision for that report so that if members don't want it into consent because there is the revision, that's all. Just wanted to highlight it.
Yep. So it would just be 7.1 as revised.
Yes.
Okay. The consent motion is moved by Councillor Fortini. Is there anyone that opposes the motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. Okay, thank you. There are no objections, so the motion carries. Our next
Mr.
item is...
Chair,
Yep.
just a note from Councillor Singh. He's having difficulties in logging on, unable to find the link to the clerk. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. So someone offline will speak with Councillor Singh. Unless Councillor Singh has any sort of comments regarding the items that we just prepared or that we just addressed?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay, thank you. Our next item then is statutory public meeting reports. Our next section of tonight's agenda. This is a public meeting of the Planning Development Committee held in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act of Ontario. The proposals to be heard at this public meeting are the result of applications made under the Planning Act. These are not proposals of the City of Brampton unless they are specifically identified as city-initiated proposals. We do not have any city-initiated proposal as part of tonight's statutory public meeting. The intent of this public meeting is to receive submissions from the public regarding these proposals. Given we may have persons watching this meeting through the city's live stream, we will have staff present each proposed subject to a statutory public meeting unless committee decides otherwise. After receiving any pre-registered delegations, members of the committee may ask questions for clarification, but will not engage in debate on the proposal at this time. Committee consideration of the proposal will occur at a future meeting when planning staff bring forward the final recommendation report on each proposal. The city also has posted on its website, brampton.ca, supporting information documentation for these development applications for public review and reference. We will now proceed to consider the one item on this evening's statutory public meeting agenda. After consideration of these public meeting items, committee will deal with the balance of the agenda items on tonight's agenda. So item 5.1, regarding staff report regarding application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw proposed draft of subdivision to submit 78 stacked townhouse units, Your Home Developments, Ebenezer Incorporated, Kenefcon East Limited. So I believe now I will hand it over to Mark Michniak of our development planner from Planning, Building, Economic Development. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening to the Chair, committee members, staff, and members of the public. My name is Mark Michniak, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by Kenefcon East Limited on behalf of Your Home Developments, Ebenezer Incorporated. Next slide, please. The subject property is located within Ward 8 in the eastern part of Brampton. It is located on the north side of Ebenezer Road between the Gore Road and McVean Drive. Next slide, please. This concept plan shows the proposed development. Note that the plan has been reoriented so that north is facing the left side. The applicant is proposing a residential development which consists of 78 stacked townhouse dwelling units. A draft plan of subdivision is required to create the necessary lots and blocks for this development. An official plan and zoning bylaw amendment is required to permit the proposed density and uses. Next slide, please. This map shows properties within 240 meters of the proposed development. Owners of these properties would have received notice by direct mail with respect to the proposal. Notice was also provided in the Brampton Guardian newspaper and on the City of Brampton website. Next slide, please. Surrounding land uses include, to the north, open space containing a tributary of the Humber River, a low-density residential neighborhood consisting of single detached dwellings, school, park space, and a stormwater management pond. To the east, single detached and semi-detached dwellings. To the south, across Ebenezer Road, there is a low-density residential neighborhood consisting of single detached and semi-detached dwellings. And to the west, single detached and semi-detached dwellings. Next slide, please. The applicant is requesting to permit one residential block, one natural heritage system block, an associated buffer block, and 78 stacked townhouse dwelling units. Next slide, please. The subject property is designated residential in the official plan. An amendment to the official plan is not required. Next slide. The property is designated low/medium density residential, medium density residential, and valley land in the Bram East secondary plan. An amendment to the secondary plan is required to permit the proposed density. Next slide. The subject property is currently zoned Highway Commercial 1 and Agricultural in the zoning bylaw. This only permits a reception hall, single detached dwelling, and agricultural uses. An amendment to the zoning bylaw will be required in order to permit the proposed uses. Next slide. There are a few issues that staff are monitoring on this file. Consider the effects of mitigation and enhancement measures on the natural heritage feature. Ensure that the property is properly classified within the secondary plan to reflect the proposed density. And examine access to the site from Ebenezer Road and circulation patterns within the site for both pedestrians and vehicles. Next slide. This slide shows where staff are in the review of the application. The application has been circulated to city departments as well as other agencies for technical comment. Notice of the public meeting was given to property owners in the vicinity of the property and published in the newspaper and on the city's website. We are now at the public meeting stage. Committee members and staff are here to listen to any feedback. After tonight's meeting, comments received from city departments, agencies, members of the public, and matters raised through the public delegations will be reviewed and evaluated. The proposal will be further assessed against the provincial policy statement, the growth plan, the regional official plan, and the city's official plan and secondary plan. Once analysis and evaluation is complete, staff will return to the Planning and Development Committee with a recommendation report. The recommendation report will address all matters raised by members of the public, external agencies, and other city departments. Anyone that provided their contact information with respect to this application will be advised when the recommendation report will be considered by the committee. Once City Council makes a decision on the application, there is an opportunity to appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal. Next slide, please. The report associated with tonight's meeting is available online, and the presentation will be available online shortly. Again, my name is Mark Mishniak, and my contact information is posted on the screen. Also on screen is the contact information for the applicant, Scott Waterhouse of Con East Limited. Thank you, and this concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mark. City Clerk, do we have any delegations registered?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do not. We have correspondence 11.1. There's 4 separate pieces of correspondence, and the representative from CanDevCon is present should committee wish have any questions.
Thank you very much. Members of the committee, are there any questions of clarification? Or we do, as mentioned by the city clerk, have a representative of CanDevCon if anyone would like to address any points, questions of clarification. I see none. So I do have, I see there are no questions. So I believe I have a motion moved by Councillor, and I can't, maybe if I see that come up on the screen. City Clerk, do we have a motion?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do. We're just going to bring that up on the screen right now.
Yep.
Councillor Williams?
Okay, thank you. So I do have a motion moved by Councillor Williams to approve the staff report recommendations, receive correspondence 11.1, that the report title information report, application to amend the official plan, amend the zoning bylaw, and proposed draft plan of subdivision your home developments 4316 Ebenezer Ward, Ward 8, to the Planning Development Committee meeting of October 5th, 2020 be received, that Planning and Development Services staff be directed to report back to the Planning and Development Committee with the results of the public meeting and staff recommendations subsequent to the completion of the circulation of the application and comprehensive evaluation of the proposal, that the following correspondence application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw and proposed draft plan of subdivision, your home, Kendefcon East Limited, to the Planning and Development Committee, one, Leanna Jaswal, Brampton resident, dated September 15th. Jody Jaswal, Mandeep Jaswal, and I believe there's a fourth, which I can't see. Ivan Krolovich, Brampton resident, October 3rd. So if there's no objections, the motion carries. The statutory public meeting for this item is now adjourned. Was there anyone opposed to this? My apologies. No, there's no opposition. So again, the motion carries and the statutory public meeting for this item is now adjourned. My apologies to Alan Parson. I should have brought you on before we went into the agenda, and I believe you want to introduce someone to committee and to anyone and for everyone listening tonight.
That's correct. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Medeiros, Chair, and hello to all the committee members tonight. Wanted to introduce yourselves to the newest member of our Development Services family. We've filled a vacant manager position with Development Services, and through an exhaustive search, we were able to land, we feel, really a top candidate, and his name is Steve Ganesh. And Steve Ganesh, the name might sound familiar to yourselves, as I think many councillors might be aware and familiar with Steve through his work at the Region of Peel. So Steve has recently been working at the Region of Peel. He also has a long range of expertise that he's obtained in the planning field from other areas, employers as well, from multiple different type of governmental agencies. So Steve's worked with the province. He's worked with a number of different area municipalities, Brampton included, from quite some time ago, probably in and around 20 years ago or so. Steve was previously working at the city of Brampton, and he's also worked at the province at the Ministry of Transportation. And so now we're happy to introduce Steve to yourselves as our newest Development Services Manager. And so perhaps I can just share the floor with Steve now for a word through to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks very much, Alan. Hopefully everybody can see and or hear me. Good evening, Chair and Vice Chair and members of Council. And again, Alan, thank you for those opening remarks. It's a pleasure joining all of you this evening. As Alan indicated, many of you I've had the opportunity to work with in my various roles at the Region of Peel, and I look forward to continuing that working relationship. For those of you who I haven't had a chance to work with, I look forward to meeting you, hopefully one day soon from more face-to-face as opposed to behind a screen, and getting to know you a bit better. As Ellen indicated, I've had a number of roles at various levels of government throughout my career. And on a personal note, I've lived in Brampton for the last 45 years, and I'm here. So it's pretty awesome to be back at the city, working at this exciting time in the city's development. And again, Alan, thank you very much for those kind remarks. And I look forward to building on the work of council and the leadership of Commissioner Ford and Alan with the team. So thank you very much, and back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Steve, and welcome to the team. I'm not sure if you're familiar. There is a tradition that you do buy lunch for your director on your first day, but I guess during COVID times we'll wait till that can happen in person. But jokes aside, welcome to the team, and we look forward to your contribution. So we move on to public delegations, and we have a delegation from Jotvinder Sodhi, Sukhwinder Dhillon, Harinder Chima, and Sukhjot Nuru from the Homeowners Welfare Association regarding affordable housing and zoning changes. And I would just remind the delegations that each delegation will forward to present a committee. Each delegation will be provided up to 5 minutes to speak to committee. Committee is reminded there's no associated staff report for this set of delegations, so City can receive the delegation and refer the matter to staff for a future report. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just joining us tonight is Jotvinder Sodhi. I believe, Jadvinder, you'll be speaking on behalf of the other
Yes, please.
persons
Yes,
listed,
please.
so you can please proceed.
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Peter Fay, and Sukhjot Naru is over the phone as well. Thank you very much for giving us opportunity to bring up the case of the concerned residents and Homeowners Welfare Association of Brampton. And chair and members of the board, thank you very much. And can we move it to next slide, please? So we have been lobbying for since many years about the affordable housing and safe housing in Brampton, which is lacking due to new Canadians, either it's international students, or new migrants choose to Brampton as their new place to grow, and as well as the families growing in Brampton. So Brampton has been a very well loved place to be here. Many residents pleased with that. Use the checklist for inspectors to standardize the inspection procedure. From my background is quality assurance for the last 30 years. So I understand the concepts behind the standardization procedures and policies. So instead of having a human, avoiding the human error, as well as standardize the procedure that will help the contractors, help the homeowners, that simplify the procedure. That way you give a checklist and they follow those guidelines and everyone is happy with that. This is a humble request from Homeowners Welfare Association. Respect the taxpayers, homeowners being harassed. So we have here the complaints from the residents, which has been shared with the different council members as well as time to time. And we highlight that in our town hall meeting, which we had done last year in September, where most of, I think half of the team from the council has represented there on behalf of the city, and they took the issues from the homeowners, which has not been resolved. And also we are asking for use the latest technology, example scanners to check the plumbing and electrical wires and existing basements, because existing basements already built. Even builders, developers they don't follow under the current standards. So instead of digging down everything and tear down the whole basement, which somebody has spent $20,000-$30,000 and do it redone again, it's gonna cost us $70,000-$80,000 the project. Normal rate today for 2-bedroom basement is around $40,000 to $60,000 depending on the finishes and the quality you're looking for. And give at least 1 year grace period to the homeowners so they can do the proper construction in enough time frame, because COVID is leaving the COVID on a side. It takes time to get drawings made up by the architect and then submit the application. The city process time is around 4 months today. And then you're going to find the contractors. These days, it's not easy to find a contractor. If everyone is hunting the contractors, it takes a longer time. So that's why we are requesting to give us at least 1 year to the homeowners to provide the affordable accommodation to the new Canadians, as well as to help them out to have their better life, because taxes, insurance, and everything is high in Brampton. Unfortunately or fortunately, this is a fact. And grandfather rule, please implement the applied older basements as a previously approved. Some of the basements were already previously approved. Now they are not fall under the current standard. Has to have a grandfather rule applied. Simplify the side entrance as developers are allowed. I have seen personally, have shown to the council members, you can literally have a cat walk through in that the walkway on the side of the house, and there is a side entrance. I still have witnessed houses have not been teared down. They still exist, new subdivision. You could imagine how much space we are giving on the sides, and builders make a side entrance. They are allowed. When homeowners comes in a request for side entrance, there are different rules. I'm not sure how the city council approved those conditions, because initially these are the new subdivisions has been built not long ago, like say 5, 6, 7 years. People are waiting still today for their deposits, which has been given. My subdivision 8 years ago, approved by almost over a year. Still, we haven't received our deposit. Neither the city taking an action nor the developer doing it. So this has to be looked after too. Allow minimum 4 unrelated people in the basement apartment instead of 3, as fire building code allows. So city has a stricter rules, strict rules and conditions for the houses than the fire code. So you could see it. There is a huge gap. And improve the parking requirements and approachable public transit to use by as many as possible accessible transit during the hours of commute. Say odd hours, we would like to have, let's say 8, 9, after 9 o'clock, after 8 o'clock, the services is not available bus service. The transportation or transit services is not great in Brampton. And we are expecting people to use more and more transits, especially students, especially seniors, especially other people. And that will reduce the load on the roads, causing a lot of accidents. It's all correlated, reactive actions. From one good change, it goes too far off a good, and for the bad change, it goes too far bad. Pending issues of providing rapid transit on Highway 7 for our students and employees to commute. Sorry, one second.
Mr.
commute
Sodi, just a
on the,
reminder,
right?
Mr. Sodi,
Yeah.
just a reminder, you're at 5 minutes now.
Can we request for another couple of minutes to close my remarks? This, hello?
So, Mr. Sodi, yes, go ahead,
Yes,
because
please.
you're the only one speaking on behalf of your other colleagues, is that
Yes,
correct?
please. Yes, please.
Okay, so go ahead,
Yes,
take another couple minutes, that's fine.
yes, please. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
So Highway 7, we are asking for a rapid transit because students, university students, college students, even commuters working have to go, they have to wait 4 or 5 buses. The winter is starting. It's terrible for those students to wait that long. Standardize, simplify inspection procedure for checklist. Oh, sorry, that's done. Enforce the policies. All we are asking is make a plain land field for the homeowners and the developers. Developers get things done by all means, and when it comes to the homeowners, they have to struggle for every single thing. And planning to enforce the policies of builders as well, no more for double standard between the taxpayers and so. And the last point is stop the transfer of employment land to residentials. Queen Street happened, Gore Road. Today, there is a high price. Builder is selling 25 acres few years back, was transferred an employment land to housing. And 45,000 houses have been built in the west side of the Brampton. They're going to add up more load. 200,000 more people are going to be adding to the Brampton. So do we have infrastructure? We are asking for colleges, universities in Brampton. We all support for that. It is becoming a bedroom community to stay in the town. So we need to have infrastructure. We need to have a transit. We need to have employment opportunities simultaneously. If you're going to start building houses and houses and houses, then it's a house of houses. There won't be anything in Brampton. There's a current city bylaw 270 2004 prosecuting the citizens for violating the bylaws has to be amended. We request most of the council members fully understand we are not asking for any violations at all. We are not asking favors on that part, but same time, give the break to the residents. Some of the council members, sorry to say, I have to say that last part, their BP goes high when we talk about basement word. They should be more kind of respecting the taxpayers who contribute their salaries. You name a basement, check their BP. Will be double high. Why? Why don't you call us in the meeting and let's have a discussion on it? That's what we requested in our town hall meeting. That's what we're requesting again. We would like to contribute on safety. We would like to contribute in our city on various issues, public safety. Today, somebody lost a life. Again, the gun fire shoot in the house. So how safe we are. For years, we have been raising those issues. Literally, please, we humbly request Brampton residents love Brampton. It's a flower city known as Let's leave it as a flower city. Let's work together collaboratively. Let's not create the walls among people. Oh, he is asking for basement. No, no, no. Means people have different ideas, different perspective of looking at things. But if we work together, we have to bring in federals, we have to bring in provincials in place. If we have more than counted for numbers in Brampton, we can lobby a case, hey, new immigration or students or some one way or other, we have not so many uncounted for numbers in Brampton. We need more funding. We need more infrastructure sponsorships from the federal government. That can be doable if we all get together. We are all on the same page. Brampton University application has not been submitted as of today. And we're talking about university every day, every year, every election. Let's be realistic. Let's be positive. Let's work together. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and the members of the council.
Thank you, Mr. Sodi. I do have some questions. I believe the first person is Councillor Plushie.
No, Mr. Chair, I was on for welcoming Steve Ganesh. I just wanted to say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. My apologies, Councillor Plushie. Thank you again. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I was just checking my blood pressure when he was mentioning second unit.
I didn't name Jeff your name, but you brought in yourself.
Yeah, I did. Mr. Sodi, you and I agree on a lot of things and we disagree on a lot of things, and we're at polar opposites on this one for sure. I'm not going to get into the benefits of second unit housing. I just want to ask you a few questions because I'm very well known for my stance on second units, boarding houses, illegal units, things like that. You are all about, Mr. Sodi, you want housing, affordable housing for everyone. You want safe, affordable housing. You also don't want any commercial land changed over. So what would happen if we had a piece of commercial property that we could build hundreds of low-cost housing units on? Would you be in favor of it then?
You know what? It's a location. If you don't have infrastructure, if you're building on a Mayfield Road where there is none infrastructure, there's no transit, then how are you going to build it? If you're building in a Queen Street Highway 7, where we have a little bit of infrastructure, we could add on to it. You need to pick the battles. I understand we agree on so many things, we disagree on so many things, but if we constructively sit together, we discuss about the positively. I never asked for unsafe housing. I never asked for a violation of the laws. What we are asking is very simply is if we get collaborative effort, if homeowners exist, and if you could add more taxes to it a little bit, that will add the city revenue. Instead of penalizing the residents, if someone is rectifying the issues which has been approved, the basement, still they have been penalized, $25,000 up to, again, that word comes out. So it's all, we can solve everything, anything, if we have a positive approach.
Okay, so Mr. Sodi, the other thing I wanted to ask is, would you be in favor of the city working with the province and the federal government to ensure that every single rental unit is reported and every single dollar in rent is recorded and all taxes are paid equally by all those to all the various levels of government? Because right now, that's not happening, and we all know it's not happening.
Jeff, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is Brampton the only town, city in this Canada has a housing basement apartments rented? Isn't it Toronto? Isn't it Mississauga? Isn't it Bolton? Isn't it Vaughan? Isn't it Richmond Hill? So why, just a simple, sorry, I have to ask you a blunt question. Why you want to interfere in somebody's private life? You're asking to have a direct access without homeowners' permission. I fully understand your point up to which are people have purchased the houses and they rent it out.
So
if
as much as I appreciate this,
let me explain my part.
Mr. Sodi,
I will never allow any tenant to misuse my property.
Okay, Mr. Sodi, this is not, I appreciate your passion and I appreciate Councillor Bowman, the willingness to entertain a question is just, this is not the right forum. I would invite you, gentlemen, to meet and maybe discuss this further. And probably, Mr. Sodi, your area councillors, who are probably very lucky to have you as someone who's passionate as a resident on these issues. I would encourage you to meet with them and to provide some clarity. And just lastly, if you want to wrap it up, Councillor Bowman, do you have any further questions to Mr. Sodi?
Yes, thank you, Chair Medeiros. I didn't mean to get his blood pressure up there, so.
Jeff, we're going to work together no matter what.
Yes. On your very first slide, Mr. Soti, if we can go to that, the very first point, are you inferring that our bylaw officers and our building inspectors are being racist? It says.
You know what? It's.
I just want to know, because I can assure you they are not, and they have a very, very tough job to do, and they treat everybody equally. I've gone on calls with them and everything's equal. So don't think that's a fair comment to make. There it is there. Targeting
Jeff,
racial.
Let's not, how you assume that homeowners are misbehaving. It could be a language barrier. There is a multiple languages. It could be how you approach. Jeff, we have a disagreement on so many things. We have agreement 100% on so many things, but we do keep the mutual respect. We do respect other people. If we say I'm gonna be taking action, I'm gonna do this one, I'm gonna have you violation in the court, I'll bring you in the court. These are the kind of threatening. The cameras, put in the cameras. People have.
Okay, so no, Mr.
So I'm not
Cody,
saying, I'm not blaming on one person versus the other one. My point here is there is a gap, and your job as a counselor is very well to bridge those gaps between the staff and the homeowners. It's
okay. No, Mr. Sodi. I'm just saying I think it's very unfair to our staff to put in there that the potential for racism is there. I don't think that's the case. So I just take exception to that first checkpoint. So, but again, thank you for coming. And thank you for delegating.
Yes,
Mr.
the
Chair,
last
it's
part
Richard.
is thank you very much.
Okay.
We need to work together no matter what.
You bet.
Mr. Chair,
And we are there to support on provincial and federal level.
Yes.
And it's for entire Brampton, not for Brampton East. My counselor was standing besides me when I got a ticket for, there was a small construction going on. There was small material, which was during the construction. I got a ticket, I take it. But
Mr.
we
Chair,
respect
thank you, Mr. Sodi.
and mayor take a ticket if they violate the law.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sodi. And are you done, Councillor Bowman?
I am, yes, I am, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Bowman. I do believe that Richard, our commissioner, would like to, I think, address some of the comments here. Go ahead, Richard.
I would like to, especially the comment about racism. And I know that we have our CBO on the line, and I'd like him to pipe in. But I do know that we provide materials in terms of how to build things in different languages within Brampton. And I think the comment about our inspectors being racist is inappropriate and is uncalled for. And I'd like our CBO, Rick Kennard, to just pipe in. Thank you.
I have to answer that.
Thank you.
I would request you, I have to clarify that part, because this is properly an allegation back on us. I would request you to do an investigation of how many tickets has been issued for the basements and what races, what percentage. We would like city to investigate that, including your commissioner, before you pointing a finger on others.
Thank you, Mr. Sodi.
I point 3 on myself.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sodi. I think we have Rick Kennard on the call. Would you like to, just a very short, please, Mr. Kennard?
Thank you, Chair. And yes, I will keep it as short as possible. Obviously, our inspectors and everybody within the building division operates with the utmost integrity. We are obligated to comply with our code of ethics, our standards for professionalism, and if there are any specific accusations of racism, we do take them very seriously, and we do investigate. And upon conclusion, if it is found that one of our staff have acted with any sort of racism, we do deal with that situation. However, it should be dealt with. And so this isn't anything we take lightly, certainly. And it is something that we strive every day to ensure that is not happening, in our field. Absolutely.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, and I do a last question. I think Councillor Fortini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was a little bit lost in this conversation, like went on the highway, but I think our Commissioner and Rick Kennard answered my what I was going to say. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Sodi.
Yes, please.
And
if you give me 30 seconds, please. Use the
listen. I'll give you a quick.
To standardize the inspection procedure to reduce unnecessary influencing, targeting certain racials. We are suggesting something. It's not an attack. It's not an acquisition. It's more of a proactive, positive approach. Please.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sodi. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. So our next delegation tonight is from Phil and Joanna Sequeira, Brampton residents regarding shed setbacks in zoning.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, it's Peter.
Yes.
Councillor Singh and Councillor Paleshi are on the list to ask.
Oh, my apologies. I just saw that after the fact. Okay, Councillor Singh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, obviously, with staff, that we have been doing a lot of work on this, and I feel like, I want to give them the credit that they deserve. I've been working all year with Rick as well, and they've been doing a good job, and we're bringing changes in. Obviously, things get very complicated. When we make one little change, it can affect, official plans or whatnot, but, my hat goes off to the staff for all the changes they brought, and I can assure you residents are really happy about it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor Paleshi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to lay my support to the comments that Mr. Kennard spoke about. I think we need to take racism very seriously when we need to not get our backs up when somebody says that they feel like that we've been racist against. And I know that this is planning. We're not talking about racism at planning, but if there is an indication like Mr. Kennard had mentioned, we take it extremely serious. So I just wanted to thank Mr. Kennard for mentioning that and just assure all residents that we do take those things very serious. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we'll now move on to the next item. And I believe, City Clerk, we have Phil and Joanne who are ready to delegate.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Phil Sequeira has just joined the session. Phil, you are in this session now as a panelist. You can unmute your microphone and turn on your video if you so choose to address the committee. Please go ahead.
Yes, good evening to all council members. My wife and I, Joanne, would like to thank all of you for allowing me to speak this evening with respect to the bylaw shed setback issue, section 7.3 and 10.3 of the general provisions for residential zones, accessory buildings bylaw in particular. We are both original homeowners and a resident of the city of Brampton and have been for over at least 30, 35, 40 years. On my property itself in wards 3 and 4, in 2001 and 2002, I erected a shed in my own backyard with the agreement of the original neighbors, back and side, having no issues with my rural outdoor product shed, which was constructed on a wooden platform, putting aside not tampering with the grading or any other issues, survey issues that the city conducted prior to me taking ownership of this new property back in 1997. The shed was erected 6 inches roughly away from the lot line in order to avoid any wildlife or weeds growing behind the structure itself. On the July of last year, 22nd to be exact, a city official attended my residence with respect to an order of compliance that my shed was not in was a non-compliance issue under the section and provisions. I am fully aware that the city works on a complaint basis, which is the case here, and has been and of course this shed issue being erected for approximately 19 years is the major issue right now that is being present in my residence. I am requesting all council members that an exemption to the particular bylaw be granted for structures that have been erected over a minimal period of 10 plus years with non-compliance issues for the following reasons. One, if this is conducted or if this is passed, this will alleviate the workload for city councilors having not to deal with issues that have been present for several years and is not a pressing issue. Two, this would also lessen the workload for City of Brampton property standard enforcement and bylaw officers so they can deal with more pressing and pertinent infractions. Three, it would prevent homeowners within the City of Brampton for using the City of Brampton bylaw department as a vehicle to maliciously and vindictively prosecute other Brampton residents, causing conflict within neighborhoods or neighbors, which could lead to potential criminal police investigations. And four, as a Brampton homeowner and taxpayer, allocate time and resources that are being spent wastefully to other areas of infractions that have a vital impact on the city infrastructure. Thank you for your opportunity tonight for listening to me, and I hope that the council can have a consensus to look at this bylaw, which was erected in 1950 and it was amended and signed by the city clerk in 1979 and amended again in 2004, but has not really changed today's infrastructure within the city of Brampton. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sakara. I guess maybe before we open up to any questions by councillors, do staff want to provide any comments?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Alan Parsons here. Perhaps I can just provide some word. Just to maybe start by saying that through the Committee of Adjustments process for minor variances, in my 20 years here at the City of Brampton, I have found that we've always been able to somehow find a way forward in working with landowners, residents, to resolve really key matters that they might have had with their sheds or other matters with as far as locating accessory items and structures in their backyards. We've always really found a way to where a particular shed is reasonably located relative to the setback to a side or rear yard, and where there's been really appropriate heights for those structures. We've been able to be amenable and supportive of really variances associated with like reductions in setback from the zoning bylaw requirements. And so in this case, I don't know, but I don't believe that a Committee of Adjustment minor variance application was received here for the subject property and the subject shed. I would really welcome the applicant to submit an application, and perhaps even in advance of that, follow up with staff. We have several staff members that we can really recommend that you follow up with to speak about your particular issue and see if there is a way in which staff can be supportive of the situation that you have out there right now. With respect to a reprieve for, or really an exemption for structures that have existed for a period of 10 years or longer, that's, while it's something that staff could no doubt look at with our legal staff and enforcement, I suspect that there is or would be perhaps some difficulty in really assembling a strategy in association with the exemptions in those ways, as far as it would be perhaps difficult to understand, well, when sheds, had been constructed, if there was no record of them receiving approvals in the past, just how old, are they? Even if it is that they have been there for a certain period of time and there hasn't been any problems associated with them, that's perhaps not to say that there isn't some larger issues that staff should be looking at. So really, that's all to say that staff would be very willing, obviously, to speak with the delegate here tonight about the situation that is experienced out there on the subject property, and try to find a really amicable way forward through the existing tools that we have with us, in particular the minor variance process.
Yeah, and thank you, Alan, for that. I do know, as one of the area councillors, I had the opportunity to go out and with the bylaw officer and take a look. And, I think the conundrum that we're in, first of all, the house is immaculate, the property is immaculate. The shed, again, maybe from a technical perspective, is what it is. And I know staff are doing their job. But I think also when we think of the minor variance, there are costs associated. So as much as, that some of the costs, and that's something we might want to review, I believe it's $600 if I'm not mistaken. That's a fair chunk to hit a homeowner for where a shed's been there for, be it 20 years. And I do understand the conundrum in terms of verification of how long it's been there, et cetera, et cetera. But essentially this boils down to probably a disagreement with a neighbor who decided to get back at this individual. It's just unfortunate on all cases. And I do understand we have to especially uphold our bylaws and so on. But I was really moved when I went to the property and I met with the Sequeiras, and just in terms of everything that we've seen out there as councillors, these are not the people that we want to inflict this type of, I wouldn't say inflict is probably not the right word, but, these are not the people that have to deal with all the sort of, bureaucracy of now trying to legalize something where the property is really well maintained, and they seem very thoughtful and very responsible residents. But again, that's why we're having this forum, and I do see that there are some speakers, so I'll hand it over to Councillor Fortini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and yes, you have good points. Just to Alan, I understand the committee is like $680 for residents to go there. Do we have anything when sheds or something been there so long, and I know we have Google Earth, you can only go back so far, their grandfather then?
Yeah, 2001, sir, Mr. Fortini, Councilor Fortini. Google Maps was done by the enforcement officer. It was erected in 2001.
Yeah, and I get that, but I'm asking the staff, if they go past that, do they get this thing like it's called grandfather then? Like a lot of big driveways we have, they've been there for many years. I know once you take it down, you lose your rights, but if it's still there and you just fix it up and it carry on after so many years, if it's built in the 70s or 80s, and now we come along and say, well, you know what, you're this. Do we have something there that called grandfather then?
Yeah, so through Mr. Chair, grandfathering, it really is an element of the zoning bylaw, which is more formally referenced as legal non-conforming. There are instances where that could be the fact if it was that, let's say, the shed was constructed where it is, closer to the property line. Really, at that point in time, if it was that the zoning bylaw allowed for that setback, and then thereafter, if the zoning bylaw was changed to require a greater setback, that would be the instance where the shed could be considered grandfathered. It's legal, but it's not conforming to the current bylaw. So I don't think that would be the case here. I don't think there has been any changes to the zoning bylaw really to change the setback requirements for sheds from property lines. So really just by way of it alone, having been there for some time, that wouldn't itself make it grandfathered or legal non-conforming.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
So what Councilor Maderos was saying, when you go to these places, I hate to go let them spend another $680 in drives and committee because it's very hard for them. And I've seen in my area, the fences come down, they start at 2 feet the shed, and then they move the fence over, it's only a foot. And then they move it to 8 inches, then they move it back to a foot. So really, you gotta actually even take the survey 100%. I was just hoping, certain properties are there for so many years and it's never been a bother. And all of a sudden now, someone complains and they have to move everything. I find that, I was hoping we would have something there. If it's there for many years, it hasn't bothered anybody until now. We shouldn't have to go through permits and all this. Anyway, thank you. And I agree with the chair. I'm glad he went over and took a look. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Fortini. Councilor Vicente.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add some additional thoughts, and I know members of council have known for quite some time that I am a little bit opposed to the idea that bylaw enforcement happens here in the city of Brampton on a complaints-based model. I think that when you have a structure that has not bothered anyone in the community for a long period of time, and no one has really said anything about it. And then to the chair's point, where perhaps there is a dispute or some issue between neighbors that then results for the first time and perhaps forever, a complaint is issued about a structure that never bothered anyone before. I think it's a little bit unfair. And I would much rather prefer if we had a system where bylaw officers were looking for these problems or finding these problems, and that kind of takes the complaints out of the system and neighbors feeling bad that perhaps someone snitched on them or told on them to the local authorities. If you don't comply, if you're breaking a rule, you should pay the cost for doing so, but not necessarily because it's a dispute between neighbors. At any rate, if staff saw a way where structures that have been in place for a very long time, and they do have the information, they have satellite photos, I believe, taken, if not every year, almost every year. And so they can determine how long a structure has been there. And if there was room for the city to have some discretion, I would not be averse to that, considering that in most cases, these matters arise when there is a dispute between neighbors and there is a complaint that's lodged to bylaw. Those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vicente. Councilor Singh.
Hi, I just wanted to ask staff just to confirm, when was this bylaw written?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's Elizabeth Corazola. The newest bylaw, the bylaw that we enforce today, is Bylaw 270-2004. Those provisions actually carry forward a lot of the old Town of Brampton bylaw that was amended in 1982, which also included the requirement for a 2-foot setback from a property line. The earliest date that we can find where that provision was introduced is in a bylaw for the Old Town of Brampton from 1979. So from 1979 onward, that requirement for a minimum 2-foot setback from all lot lines has been applicable to this area of the city. Now, it dates back quite a bit farther into the 50s for other areas of the city, but the Town of Brampton we have verified, and as a result of this actually, and we certainly do look to all of the resources that we have to try to resolve an issue, if particularly like this, something has been in place without any impact for quite some time. We will make every effort to try to resolve it if that's possible. And as Alan had mentioned previously, if a structure was legally existing at the time it was erected, meaning that it complied with the zoning bylaw, then certainly it would be allowed to continue. It does not need to be brought into compliance. But unfortunately, with this house being built in 1997 and 98 getting occupancy, this bylaw from 1979 certainly predates that. And when the shed was erected in early 2000s, this requirement for a two-foot setback did apply. So unfortunately, we couldn't declare it to be legal non-conforming in this instance.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. So, Mr. Sakara, before we just proceed, Is there any last comments you'd like to share?
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Just the fact that this has exhausted a lot of time for my wife and I with regards to our family during this COVID-19 pandemic. It's been going on since July of 2019. If I erected a shed that caused the fence to my back neighbors or my side neighbor to fall over, or I tampered with the grading in my backyard, I would be in full ownership and responsible. The onus would be on me to actually correct that problem, which of course would be my utmost priority. With regards to the shed itself, my original neighbor adjoining to me, which is the same side as the shed, when I erected that shed, I conversed with her. Unfortunately, she passed away. And then the second homeowner that's taken over the occupancy of the dwelling next door to me, being there for 9 years, we did have a mutual relationship, but for some unknown reason, which I don't know up until today, I'm speculating that this is the issue, because I've never had a complaint with my back original neighbors, which are ethnic, Italian and Spanish. And I've spoken to them regarding this. They are surprised that there's somebody's complaining about my shed. The fact that with the property, that infrastructure that is being built today, City of Brampton, the homeowners, there is no more property given. Property backyards as well as lot lines are very restricted. Unfortunately, we were lucky to buy this property back built by the builder. And of course, we bought off a pie lot. So we're on a pie lot, which is not deep, but it's lengthy. It's the fact that we had the property, but we did not have much space to, as you know, Councilor Medeiros, to erect sheds in different areas and lose the space in our backyard due to the deck that we put up as well. So this issue itself is not pressing. It is not something that has to be corrected because it's impacting the surrounding residents. It's not something that has, has caused another resident in Brampton life to be impacted by. This is costing me financial hardship. Having 3 kids in university, as some of the council members wouldn't know how much that would cost. And not to mention with this pandemic, you're retired. And also I'm retired as well. My wife is on unemployment. Is laid off right now due to the region of Peel. So there's a lot of implications that come into play here. Being 2020, having been issued in July of 2019 a non-compliance order. I just cannot swallow the fact that this has. I'm advocating, and I did speak to MPP Prab Sakara. So I've advised him, and I'm asking him to lobby on behalf of all city residents in Brampton that something like this should not take up your time as council members, the enforcement time, the City of Brampton enforcement officers, as well as the Property Standards Office, which is overwhelmed with such menial complaints. It's something that has to be looked at, and the totality of this complaint should be reviewed and say, well, if this is like as Councillor Vicente and of course the former Councillor Singh spoke. It's the fact that if this has been here for quite some time, how is it now impact, and why is it brought to the attention of property standards to make myself and my wife's life as a resident taxpayer in Brampton so difficult? Because it's quite expensive. It's a $620+ application, plus schematics, plus surveys and photographs. And at this present stage, I have, as Regional Councilor Medeiros has said, and he's seen it with his own eyes. We've landscaped our entire backyard. We've done concrete patio pad. It doesn't impact anybody. It's the fact that we've kept our property up. Yes, I'm proud of that. And we haven't altered or done anything to impact my surrounding neighbors. So in a case like this, to move that shed another 60 centimeters or a foot away from the property line, because back then it was a 1 foot bylaw, to move that shed outwards, it's going to take up, it's more financially hard to do and cost effective. So the exemption for this type of shed setback bylaw, not necessarily being grandfathered, if you want to call it that, but being looked at in order to alleviate those 4 points that I said, that I mentioned, and to free up some of your time as council members to hear this and to exhaust your energy and your time, and not to mention the red tape and the political bureaucracy that I have to go through, and then that you council members have to listen to over something that doesn't impact anybody except whoever is complained about my shed. And
Thank you.
my main concern.
Sorry, I have a speaker, last speaker, Councillor Palashi.
You, Mr. Chair. I have been listening to this and scratching my head, wondering why we're even dealing with a matter like this before us when it should have gone somewhere else. So there's a lot of good points that the resident has made, but the resident has also stated a lot of things that he says don't impact his neighbors. Concrete pads impact your neighbors. Sheds impact your neighbors. You may not see that it doesn't, but essentially it does, whether it's by water, by shade, by whatever. But I'm not trying to get into arguing this matter. I'm just trying to understand. Alan, can you please come back on to say where should this matter be dealt with? Is it not property standards that should be dealing with this matter? And has property standards made a decision?
Through you, Mr. Chair, through to Councillor Palashi, perhaps the property standards question specifically, I'll leave for Rick Kennard to speak to. I think he has a greater familiarity with the dealings from that group and really matters that perhaps they might have looked at already. Really, just to maybe reiterate a little bit, of what I had said before. That this is a matter that could very well go through to the Committee of Adjustments, but that deals with the minor variance aspects only, and really wouldn't be able to deal with the requests that we're receiving for exemptions. So perhaps I'll pass it over to Rick.
So, okay, so before, and that's kind of what I wanted to hear from you again, is that it should be going to Committee of Adjustments. Essentially, the homeowner built a shed that was not within the right of a bylaw that predates the shed. So that being said, that's why we have minor variances, and minor variances are to be captured through Committee of Adjustments. So I don't understand with the homeowner saying that back in July of 2019 he's been going through this, but we do not have an application before the Committee of Adjustments, you had stated. Is that correct?
That's right. Through you, Mr. Chair. When I had looked at the matter approximately a week ago or so, when really first came to understand that there's going to be a delegation tonight, just understood, wanted to understand myself if an application had been made for the site, and in reviewing through our database, that one had not been submitted.
Okay, thank you. Rick, can you talk about the property standards?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm not too sure if John Atbar has joined us tonight. We did anticipate that there may be some property standards questions to address tonight, but I will speak to it from the perspective that we as enforcement either from the building code aspect or from a bylaw aspect. When we receive a report, obviously that there is something either not in compliance with the Building Code Act or one of our bylaws, enforcement or the inspectors, whoever they may be, are obligated, obviously, to inspect. And of course, as has been alluded to a couple of times tonight, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So the idea that you've built something that doesn't comply with a bylaw or with the regulations doesn't give it credence to exist just by virtue of having been there for any length of time. What does come into play, I guess, in a situation where it's possible that this shed may be of a size that doesn't even require a building permit. I'm not familiar with the details. So you may be looking at strictly bylaw compliance. And Councillor Palesh, you are correct. There is an avenue to correct that or to address that. And furthermore, if there's also an avenue to request, as I understand it, through to the Committee of Adjustment, a possibility to waive the fees if there are extenuating circumstances. And I think that decision becomes one of the Committee of Adjustment. And I'd throw it back to Alan to elaborate on that, or even Peter, possibly you could elaborate on that process. But I think that is an avenue if that's the extenuating circumstance that is restricting this application from moving forward. But as I understand it, the payment has to be made, and then a letter is submitted to the Committee of Adjustment to request a waiver of the fees and with supporting documentation behind that. But John, are you on the line still to speak any further about the bylaw enforcement process?
Yeah, through the chair. It's John Avbar. I'm the manager of property standards. The process is quite simple, and as Rick pointed out, we will respond to a complaint and have an obligation to investigate and ultimately enforce. There's been no legal action taken in this case. There has been 2 requests for extensions in time to comply. Those were granted last fall. So we're in a position that it was our understanding that there would be an application to Committee of Adjustment, and we're hoping for a resolution there. That's the latest information that I have at this point.
Okay, thank you. I think we've...
Councillor Medeiros, if I may just interrupt here. Yes, Mr. Avbar, a Committee of Adjustments application I do have. I will be completing that. It's just the fact that when you look at bylaws, there is no statute of limitations with respect to bylaws in itself, in its entirety. A provincial offense itself, for an enforcement officer to lay a provincial offense under the Act.
Point of order.
Statute.
Yes, so this, unfortunately, Mr. Sakara, this is not a question and answer. So there's been an objection raised. I'll grant the objection. And Mr. Sakara, we can take this offline. I think, one of the reasons that I encourage Mr. Sakara to come forward, and as we can see that there seems to be really a healthy discussion, but there's not one sort of clear pathway into, Committee of Adjustment seems where we send all these different situations, but at the same time, Committee of Adjustment, as another councillor has said, it's almost that to pay a fee, you can go deal with an issue, and maybe there's an opportunity for us as a council to look at the bigger issue if there's a policy issue or looking at changing the bylaw. But thank you, Mr. Sakura. I think you've raised a lot of consideration, and I believe someone from Development Services will continue to reach out to you to talk to you about what that process is with the C of A, and certainly Councillor Bowman and myself as the area councillors are more than happy to ensure that you get the answers that you require. Thank you very much, Mr. Sakara.
Thank you, all councillors and Councillor Medeiros, for my wife and I for listening to us on behalf of tonight's meeting. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we do have a motion to receive the delegations. Moved by Councillor Singh regarding item 6.1, and item 6.2 moved by Councillor Bowman. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, now we go on to item 7.1, staff report. Are there any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, 7.1 was added to consent.
Oh, that's one by Councillor Palacio. Okay, my apologies. So we go on to item 7.2. I believe that's in consent right now.
No, 7.2 is before committee.
Yeah. Are there any questions? Nope, I see no questions. So I believe there's a motion moved by Councillor Williams that the report titled Recommendation Report Application to Amend the Zoning Bylaw 2487557 Ontario Incorporated, Gagnon Walker Domes Limited, to the Planning Development Services meeting of October 5th, 2020 be received. That the zoning bylaw amendment application sent in by Gagnon Walker Domes Limited on behalf of 2487557 Ontario Incorporated Ward 8 file be approved on the basis that it represents good planning, including that it's consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe and the Region of Peel official plan, and the city's official plan for the reasons set out in this recommendation report. That the amendment to the zoning bylaw generally in accordance with the attached Appendix 13 to this report be adopted. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. Okay, there are no objections, so the motion carries. Item 7.3. Are there any questions? No. Okay, I believe there's a motion moved by Councillor Bowman that the motion to approve the report recommendations receive the correspondence, that the report titled Recommendation Report City Initiated Official Plan Amendment to the Credit Valley Secondary Plan Area 45 implementing the Springbrook Settlement Area Statutory Plan to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of October 5th, that the official plan amendment be approved on the basis that it represents good planning, including that's consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to a place to grow, growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region of Peel official plan, and the city's official plan for the reasons set out in this report, that the amendment to the official plan attaches Appendix J to this report, that the correspondence from Colin Chung, Glenn Schnarr and Associates dated October 1st, city initiated official plan amendment to the Credit Valley Secondary Plan Area 45, implementing the Springbrook Settlement Area Tertiary Plan to the Planning Development Committee. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative.
So, Mr. Chair, there is the additional correspondence that will be incorporated with this from Overland LLP that was distributed this evening.
Okay, so I do have two questions. Councillor Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and that was very rapid talking through the motion there. Just a quick question along, Councillor Vicente and I have been chatting about this particular report and specifically the map that's included in the report. The development actually straddles on Queen Street, and Queen Street, from my understanding, we will be putting in transit. It's a transit corridor. And I'm just wondering, and Councillor Vicente can also fill in gaps that I'm missing on this one, if there's opportunity for higher density, specifically along the Queen Street area. Right now, the report is calling for low to medium density. I think I'm concerned that folks are just going to opt for low density. And we just passed the SERP last week. We ratified it, and we're trying to build more sustainable type of housing along transit corridors. So if staff can comment on that, and also on the mixed use component that would be probably along Queen Street, is something that both Councillor Vicente and I would prefer to see.
Okay, so does staff want to respond?
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, it's Richard. So we have Bob Bjarke on the line, and he's been leading the Queen Street project, so I'll let him answer.
Hi, yeah, Bob Bjarke here, Director of Policy Planning. So one of the things I can offer for the councillors is there are some opportunities in there that we have identified for some higher density and in the mixed use. We recognize that it's a bit of a transition at this point in time because it has come from being more of a hamlet, more of a rural character, but obviously it is fairly close to the downtown. We recognize as well that Queen Street is going to be receiving that higher order transit. So if you look at the current development applications, there are some highlighted more to the east that do include that higher density, and we have been having specific discussions with applicants there.
But there's also been quite a while in the making, and we've had to resolve a fair number of issues for the transportation and the servicing components, and have got to this resolution at this point in time for the elements that I think we need to bring together in order to create the framework for the development, recognizing that it may shift a bit as we go into the future.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Santos, is there any further questions?
No, I think Councillor Vicente will probably supplement my question.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vicente, it's the duo, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, to echo Councillor Santos's points, but also I think more strongly, I am very concerned that this doesn't go far enough in defining what it is that I think we all share a vision for along the Queen Street corridor. This is, of course, distinct from what we normally consider the Queen Street corridor, but this is an opportunity that should not be missed, recognizing, of course, that there are parts of this development that neighbor very close to neighborhoods that are, in fact, lower density, single family residential homes. I don't want us to miss an opportunity to densify and put some really useful, very significant projects along the Queen Street facade, if I may term it that way. And just like to ask staff, what can we do to ensure that that is captured and required going forward, particularly along that Queen Street stretch? Because as we all know, if we want the transit to be well utilized, we need to make sure that the people are there as well.
Well, I think through the chair to the councillor. So the core of this is we know there's going to be a BRT stop near the Hamlet mixed use area. So it is, while it's close to the downtown, it also has some standalone elements. So we are looking at the mixed use buildings and for at-grade commercial uses. We are cognizant of the level of development activity there has been, and that there are some servicing issues that have needed to be addressed. So along Queen Street, there certainly are opportunities if people are going to come in for those, but we have been quite respectful of the applications that have been underway. And as I said, some of the applications further to the east have had higher density, and we've been quite supportive of that. So it's a bit of a balance. And, we know we can't put the density everywhere. We're trying to cluster it in places and certainly respect some of the existing built forms that are there. And this is sort of building on work that had been going on for some time and consultation based on some of the residents' input, as well as the development proposals that are coming in. So as I say, I mean, with some other applications or some other approaches, there may be some opportunity to beef up what's along Queen Street, because we certainly recognize that's where it would be. Throughout the remainder of the area, there probably isn't as much of an opportunity to increase the density, but on Queen Street, there are places where we've incorporated that.
Okay, thank you. And I think that the word may, for me to support this, really needs to be changed so that it says shall. And I think that I have never asked this before, but I think I'd like to refer this back to staff for them to have a closer look at it and make sure that we capture this and have this done correctly, because we do not want to miss another opportunity, especially on such an important part of the city of Brampton, to make sure that we get it right. So that's what I'm asking for council to support today, for staff to go back and take a look at this. It doesn't need to take too long, but I know that some of the correspondence is asking for us to consider this carefully, and so I think that that's what we should do.
Okay, so is that's a deferral, Councillor Vicente, that you have on the board?
A referral back to staff, yes.
Referral back to staff. And is there a time where you'd like to have this come back?
As soon as possible, before the end of the year.
The staff would like to make any comment regarding, is there any considerations regarding timing?
Absolutely, sure.
So
Through the chair, it's Richard here. So yes, we will report back before the end of the year. Absolutely.
And Richard, can it be done sooner?
It can be, absolutely, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So we have a I'll refer back to staff. Are there, I believe this is non-debatable. So City Clerk, can I request a recorded vote, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. It is a debatable motion, a referral motion.
No.
But there are no more speakers that I'm aware of, so a recorded vote has been requested on the referral motion. All in favor, please indicate. Councillor Dillon? Councillor Dillon?
In favor?
Thank you. Councillor Singh?
In favor.
Thank you. Councillor Fortini?
In favor?
Thank you. Councillor Williams?
Yes.
Thank you. Chair Medeiros?
Yes.
Councillor Bowman?
Yes.
Councillor Paleshi?
Yes.
Councillor Willens?
Yes.
Councillor Vasante?
Yes.
Councillor Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the referral unanimously 10-0.
Okay. Thank you very much, City Clerk. Our next item, I believe, is correspondence which has been received. So we are now to councillor question period. Do any members have any questions regarding the community, regarding the Planning and Development Committee? Do I see anybody there? No. So we'll move on. Public question period. Is there any questions from the public, City Clerk?
Mr. Chair, no questions have been received.
Okay, thank you. We have no closed session. So our last item is adjournment. So committee's next scheduled to meet October 26th at 1 p.m. Can I have a motion moved by Councillor Vicente that the Planning and Development Committee do not adjourn to meet again on Monday, October 26, 2020 at 1 p.m. or at the call of the chair. Is there anyone opposed? Thank you. There are no objections, so the motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. Stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, practice physical distancing and wear face covering when inside public spaces. Thank you, everyone.